All right, so my video closed out when I was mixing, dog snoring, mixing the cadmium red light. So as you can definitely watch as I have the other video where I've mixed mixed each color. So you can definitely watch that. But my goal really is to create the value scale, kind of the values, so that it's easier for me to mix. And you notice I had a lot of red. So I don't use a ton of the cadmium red light. A little goes a long way. But you notice here in these brownish reds colors, I use a lot of them. And I might even add, it to the side for now, but because I don't have a whole lot of space to add more colors. But I've got this transparent transparent earth red, which I love. It's kind of a transparent, well, it is. It's not kind of. It's a transparent version. It's a reddish, transparent, earthy color. And I love it. I love using it. And I do demonstrate it in the video that I provided, but I did add a line of the burnt sienna. So that's my added line. So I'm just going to clean this here. And so what I was mentioning before the camera kind of closed off on me is that I have a lot of reds on my palette. I usually will work with one yellow, but I will have like 3 or 4 reds. And in this case, I've got like 1, 2, I consider these brownish colors red. They're like my reds. So I've got my cadmium red light. I've got this transparent earth red. I've got my burnt sienna. I've got my quinacridone magenta, which is it's kind of more of a purpley color, but I consider it one of my reds. And then I've got my alizarin crimson as well. So I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 reds on my palette. And I'm considering adding, and we'll see, swapping out maybe the burnt sienna. Maybe, we'll see, maybe in another painting with a quinacridone red, because I love that too. There's too many colors that I just absolutely love. So I've got my line here for my transparent earth red. And I'm just going to go ahead and mix my colors. Again, I like this transparent earth red because, I don't know, it's a great glazing color. And a glazing color is just very transparent, and you wait for everything that you painted to dry. And sometimes you just want to create this kind of depth. It helps create depth. And you basically kind of take a transparent color like this transparent earth red, or the alizarin crimson, which is very transparent, even the ultramarine blue. And where's my thing here? You kind of get some medium and you kind of glaze over the area that you want to darken or deepen the color. And this is a great one of them. It can be, it's a little goes a long way. It can be pretty, this got a little too light, so I'm going to add a little bit more of the transparent red. It can be a little too, it's very saturated. If you look at the mixture, it's bright. But I don't know. I love it. So I always tend to use it. use it a lot. But again, a little goes a long way with this color. And I find the reason why I put the burnt sienna up in my palette is the burnt sienna it's kind of similar, but it's a little more opaque and it's a little bit more muted. I find when I add white to the transparent, and I'm taking a look at this, and it's not, I'm thinking that this needs to get a little bit darker now that I'm looking at it. It looks funny. Let's see what that does. So sometimes you have to go back and it's a little bit better. I'm going to step back and look at that. Let me hike up the light. There we go. I think it leans, maybe this needs to be a little bit lighter. But I'm always like, depending on depending on the portrait or what I'm painting, I might adjust. I might adjust my palette by maybe one or two colors. I do have my mainstays that I'm always using, which is kind of like the yellow ochre, my cadmium red, my alizarin crimson, but I may adjust. I may add some colors. I may, add colors to the side a bit. But I stick with, how I do it is I stick with a main palette. And these are colors that I tend to gravitate towards, that I understand how to mix them. I have a good grasp of what they do and how to mix them and how they work for me. And the only way you can really understand, how a color works for you is you got to use it. You got to practice, you got to work with it. And you'll notice that you'll start gravitating. There's certain colors you're like, that you reach for when you're looking for a specific color. So yes, this is how I started using the transparent earth red. I would start gravitating towards that color, when I was, mixing skin tones. It would work. I understood how to mix the color and how to get what I want from it. And again, that color and the colors that you choose on your palette are definitely personal to what works for you. Some colors work, some colors I see artists use and I just haven't really figured out how to incorporate it in my practice, in my style. There's certain colors that I always struggle with. And other artists use it frequently. One example is cerulean blue. Now I do use it to create greens, and a lot of artists use the cerulean blue to mix skin tone, especially darker skin tone. But, I have found that I struggle. I just can't, it's not computing with me on how to utilize the cerulean blue. And it's not a lack of my knowledge or whatever, maybe a little bit, but I don't know. I just don't know how to use it, I guess. And I've added it to my palette and I've mixed it like other artists do, but it's just, I don't know. I don't feel it. I'm not like, oh, I love that color. Where I find that using the ultramarine blue just works for me. I get to what I want. I get to where I want with that color, so I just continue to use it. So yes, some colors you'll find that you struggle with certain colors, and which I do. I find that I do. I struggle with certain colors. All right, so I've got my transparent earth red, and now I'm going to go in with my burnt sienna. I'm going to kind of mix that as well. All right, so I have my burnt sienna, but I'm thinking, and I guess I should have put that, but I'm thinking, I think what I'm going to do, I've been talking about the quinacridone. I have a quinacridone rose, and I want to experiment with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it to the side here, and I'm going to experiment with that color. And what I think it is, it's another alternative to alizarin crimson, because that's the way I'm looking. So I'm not gonna add it. I'm just gonna put it to the side, and I'm gonna play with it and see how it works for me. And that's kind of how I kind of figure out what color, whether I want to add a new color or not. So a lot of times I'll find a color that I want to play with, and I don't space it out in these values, but I'll just kind of put it to the side, and I'll see what it does, and I'll see how it works. And it may end up in the starting lineup, or it might just be a side color. So I'm going to go in with the burnt sienna. I started adding the burnt sienna recently. I use it, I do use it for my underpainting. And the reason why I've added the burnt sienna, because it's very similar. It's very similar to the transparent red earth, but I find it a little bit opaque. And somehow when I'm mixing, I need something a little bit more opaque. I find that this gets very orangey. It gets, you see how vibrant. I just need something a little bit more muted. And you'll notice when I'm mixing with the little bit of white, it's a little bit more muted in tone than the, as compared to the transparent earth red. So it's almost got like a reddish, this transparent earth red is a lot more reddish, and this is a more muted, and that probably needs to be a little bit darker, a muted kind of value. So it's not as saturated. So sometimes I've always felt like I needed that. And I would always I would put the burnt sienna on the side, and then I'd always find myself returning and utilizing it. So I'm like, well, let me just put it in the starting lineup here. I still feel that that's too light. So let me I'm going to put this to the side here. I'm going to remix that. It still looks too light. What are you chewing on? Don't chew on my blanket. Okay, that should work. I think that's a lot better. And so you notice that it's slightly different. If you can see it in the camera. It's a little too, now that's the same. So the color is, the burnt sienna is just a more, less chromatic. I'm gonna step back. It's hard for me to see that, but I think that's good. It's a less chromatic of my earthy reds, is the way I can explain it. And I love to use the burnt sienna to mix it with the ultramarine blue because I get some really good darks. I get beautiful darks with that. Where I feel like when I mix it with my with the transparent red earth, I feel like I don't get the need a little bit more. I don't, it's not giving me what I want. I'm just gonna, a little bit at a time. When I did this, I used to just never have patience to sit here and do this, but I mean, it's relaxing. And I'm telling you, it's like I can, once I have this palette, it's like, I feel like I have, it's the same feeling as a clean house, really. I feel like I can just kind of tackle any painting that I have. And I feel confident. I got a little bit more confidence when I'm sitting here working my, it's a little too, needs to be a little bit lighter. Boop. So I've just, I've made the commitment to kind of set up my palette each and every time because it just makes life that much easier. And the more and more you do it, the quicker and quicker you get with it, really. That didn't mix very well. And again, if I take care of this, it will last for about the life of my painting, that I'm working on, or the several paintings that I'm working on. I'm just going to take all the rest of this and add it to this pile here, and we won't know what this color is going to be until the very end. All right, so I've got all my warm-ish colors. This is a little cool, this quinacridone rose here. That's a little cool. So that might end up over here, but we'll see. Again, unless I pull out my larger palette, I can't fit any more into my list here, but into my pile or my starting colors here. But this is just a good kind of, I feel like I've got a good lineup to work with as I'm painting here. So I'm going to finish up, basically I'm going to just kind of finish up so that you're not sitting here watching me kind of mix. And you can definitely go back to the other video and watch. But I'm going to continue with the quinacridone magenta, the alizarin crimson, viridian, and the ultramarine blue. And then I'll come back and just kind of talk about some of the extra colors that I'll be working with and adding. And then I'll talk about why I use these colors as well. All right, so I've got my palette. I've got my blues. I've added the, let me wipe my hand because I'm making a mess here. The quinacridone magenta, which I love, which is a cooler red for me. I put it in that category. I've got my alizarin crimson, which is another cooler red. But I love using it to mix my skin tones. I love using it. So you'll usually see me have a lot more reds on my palette than any other color. So right now I consider the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors here in the middle as my reds. And I have some on the warmer side, more earthier tones, and then some on the cooler side as well. And I love all of them. And I've included a new red in there, and I will play around and see what that does and how it works for me. So it may either replace, or I might add another line in here if I have space. I've added the Viridian, which I love. I love having a green, the Viridian in my mixture. It helps neutralize, it helps gray areas. And there is, if you notice, there is a lot of green in skin tone. So, it's something that you have to learn how to see, but there is a lot of green, especially in shadow areas. It's a great color to use for skin tone. And then I added my ultramarine blue, which is just kind of my all around great mixing blue color. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about any extras that I like to add. So first thing I'm going to do is I've got all my color here, and we're going to see what this creates here. Again, it changes every time. Usually it's kind of like a pinkish color. And it all depends on how much extra paint I have. And this is just all the extra paint that didn't get mixed onto here. And it creates, look at this. Look at how beautiful. It's a little different from what I had before, but it's like a kind of like a grayish, purplish color, which is great. So what I do is I'll create a few values with that. So I'll put this here. Let me mix it. It needs to be mixed up a little bit more. And this is a great, just mixing all the colors together. It's a great way to, and I just kind of put it on the side there, and then I'm going to get some white, and I'm going to add some lighter values of this. And it comes out in a grayish kind of tone. Usually it's a little grayer, which is great for skin tone colors, because grays are your friend. They may not be pretty, but they are your friend in both landscape and your portrait work. And when you can learn how to gray out a color, it's really helpful. I'm really, I didn't lighten that much. Move this out of the way here. And I'll find myself using a lot of this. It didn't lighten up enough, really, but we'll leave it there. And then I'm just going to get another thing of white, just a little bit more to make a lighter value of it. I find myself using this a lot more than some of my other colors. And because I don't like to waste color, I don't like to waste my paint, I always try to reuse it in a way that works. Okay, so that's good. So here's my extra. Ooh, that's a lot, but we'll stick with there. Okay. So I'll clean up this palette here. I'm just going to put that to the side there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some of my extra colors here. So I added the quinacridone rose here. What I usually like to do is I like to have a black. I'm going to find my black here. An ivory black. I like to add that. What that does, I don't usually... Some people will do a value scale with the black. I kind of put it right up there. And it just helps. I love the ivory black mixed with some of the reds. It just makes it beautiful. It just darkens
darkens that up a bit. So it's really, it's a great extra color to utilize. Now you notice here, I left that because that's still wet. That's a cadmium orange. I do like it. I find myself using that on occasion. So I just left it there, but that's another color that I like to add. And I may use it since there's a lot of green and I love the orange. I love the orange with the green. So I might utilize that. Another color I like to put on, I've got a little bit here, is the burnt umber. And I'll just put it down here in the corner here. It's another color I like to use to darken things. I also have a phthalo blue there. And I'm adding that. I left it in there because it's still kind of wet. But phthalo blue, since I'm going to have a lot of green going on, it's more on, the blue is more on the greenish side. And you get some nice cooler, even though, you know, if you're comparing blues, the ultramarine blue is probably a little bit more warmer in the blue family if I'm comparing it with the phthalo blue. So I just added that in there. So I've got phthalo blue, I've added burnt umber, I've got ivory black. I'm going to experiment with the permanent rose. And then another color I'm going to add is this Indian yellow. And because I like the Indian yellow, it's a nice transparent color. And just because I'm doing a lot of green, I'm just looking at the, you know, how it's going to behave with all the greens. Now, I'm going to have some other green colors that I introduced earlier, but I'm not going to add that to this main palette. This is going to be strictly for my skin tone and my hair and all that stuff. And then I will go in and I'll use my smaller palette here to mix my green color for my flowers and for my leaves. But I'll definitely use, these will work well with, you know, I can use this for my flowers as well. So that is my palette. Ooh, it's so nice and clean. And I love it. I love it when it's clean like this. I feel like I can go paint and I can, you know, create. I've just got this more a feeling to create. This is my linseed oil as well. And it's just more organized. You know, there are artists that do kind of pre-mix color, skin tone, and I love it. I wish I had that, you know, that discipline to pre-mix skin tone. And you notice all my, you know, dirty things go in the garbage can. And I can just kind of dump that in the garbage there. So, you know, I love watching artists kind of pre-mix color, but I just never know what to pre-mix. I always get anxiety doing that. So this works for me. It's just, it keeps me organized. And you will notice in the class, I'll start mentioning line 6, line 7, line 1. I'm going to take from the value scale line 3. So it's just an easier way for me to teach it. And has made my practice so much better and easier. Okay, so it is Monday and I'm excited. I'm ready to start painting. Today's lesson is, I'm going to put my palette up here that I spent here. Today's lesson was me organizing and cleaning and redoing my palettes, plural. Now I got to go clean this one, just wipe it down. And then tomorrow I'll be demonstrating, and I'm a little different from what I did last month. So last month's workshop, I just basically took some time to focus on using my iPad and Procreate, drawing the various aspects of the face, the eyes, the nose, the mouth. This time, I'm going to do it right on I'm going to work on the face. So tomorrow we're going to we did the grass. I blocked in my grass shapes. I've got my nice clean palette. So tomorrow I'm going to focus on blocking in and painting the eye shapes in my canvas. And I'm just going to go section by section to keep it. So we're just focusing on one area at a time. Again, if you have any questions, especially about my palette and the colors that I've chosen, definitely ask. I'm definitely going to, focus on the palette this month and how I'm using it, how I'm mixing color, and how I'm getting to where I need to be. So definitely take the time to, ask questions, anything that you need, any information that you need, because I feel like if you have an organized palette and you know how to navigate here, it makes it a lot easier to translate on the canvas. All right, so thank you so much. Thanks for spending the day with me cleaning up my palette, and I'll see you tomorrow.